Lime here. Just a couple words. Number one, they're our first supporters. So this place wouldn't exist if it wouldn't have been for Mississippi Lime. They made the first contribution. They set up the challenge for everybody else to make contributions. So if it wasn't for Mississippi Lime, we wouldn't have this. They sponsored this mining room. The mining gallery is finally finished. We brought in a lot of technicalities from the past. So what we were looking at is not how you mine today, how you mine in the past. So that information is in that room. And then this evening, Elizabeth and her crew are going to do the presentation about Mississippi Lime, the history of Mississippi Lime, and tell us what's going on out there today. She's even got a newer truck than 50 years old. Thank you very much.
Tom got new pictures for us.
So guys, can we move in maybe some more and get everybody back there? So
Mississippi Lime is incredibly proud to support this community museum for folks inside of St. Genevieve as well as those that come to visit our community. We hope that many come to see this exhibit and those that you continue to add to this collection.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you all for joining us tonight at the St. Genevieve Museum Learning Center. How many of you have been here before? Quite a few of you. That leaves some of you who have not. So you need to work on that. You had to pay an admission to get through tonight. Let me tell you, if you were a member, you could use that admission from tonight toward a membership. Your membership gives you unlimited access to our museum as many times as you want to visit, and also speaker presentations like the one you're going to hear tonight. They're all free throughout the year for your membership. So keep that in mind. If you'd like to do that, you can go down to the gift shop afterwards and get that taken care of. So we'd love to have you as a member of our Museum Learning Center. We are a not-for-profit organization solely. We rely on admissions for one, grants, of which not nearly enough, but we're working on it, and also the very gracious support of our business and individual donors throughout the community, much like Mississippi Lime. If you haven't noticed, we opened up our new mining gallery, of which Mississippi Lime is a sponsor of that gallery, so we certainly appreciate that. Some neat stuff in that gallery. You'll have to take a look at that. So it just opened today. Was the ribbon cutting for it, so we like that. So a few things to take care of. If you need to use the restroom, feel free. It's just 15 feet down this hallway. A quick left, you're there. We have a few events coming up this month. It's going to be a busy month. On the 28th, that's a busy, busy day for a lot of people, but we've got some things going on too that we'd like to make you aware of. We're going to have a tractor cruise in, so you see lots of neat tractors lining up right in front of the museum. A dozen or more, I don't know how many Robert has lined up, but they're always fun to see. And we're going to be giving hay rides to the kids. They can dress up in their costume if they like. So keep that in mind for the 28th. And also on the 28th, we're celebrating our 90th anniversary. Now we aren't celebrating 90 years in this building, but 90 years starts with the old museum across the way there, right next to the flags out there. That started 90 years ago as part of the town's bicentennial celebration it was built for. So we're kind of tagging on to that lineage and saying, yes, the St. Genevieve Museum is 90 years old. So we're gearing up for that 100-year mark in 10 years. So watch out for that one. So we are going to have an event for that to commemorate that. And that will be the evening of the 28th at the Oris Theater. And we are going to have GTO. Good Time Oldies playing for you. Great 50s, 60s, and 70s music, so we hope you join us for that. It'll be a fun time, and the proceeds, Dick Reminger is nice enough to give the door proceeds to the museum as a donation. So feel free to come to that and help us celebrate our 90th year. So how many of you have worked for Mississippi Lime? Keep your hands up. How many of you are related to someone who worked at Mississippi Lime? Keep your hands up. How many of you know someone who has worked at Mississippi Lime? Keep your hands up. Just goes to show, Mississippi Lime has a long, long history in this town, over a century. So it's no surprise that everyone has a connection with someone that has something to do with Mississippi Lime Company. So we are so pleased to have Mississippi Lime representatives here with us tonight to kind of show us the city beneath the city. I'm with the St. Genevieve Rotary, and we took a tour there, oh, it's been 5 years or so ago, and I was amazed. If you've never been underground seeing that operation, it just kind of blows your mind. I mean, it is huge, massive. There's no word that's big enough to describe it. So we are going to find out some about that tonight. So please welcome with me Elizabeth Wilkerson. She is the Director of Operations at Mississippi Lime, and she's going to tell us all about the city beneath the city. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all for coming out this evening and spending a bit of time learning more about Mississippi Lime. There's some of you that probably have more years inside of the facility than I've been alive, perhaps. And that's pretty awesome and a testament to what a great organization the Mississippi Lime Company is. As Stephanie said, I'm the Director of Operations for this facility. I've been with Mississippi Lime for 10 years. When I graduated from Valley Catholic in 2000, I was going to St. Louis and that's to school, and I was going to work, and I was never going to come back, and I for sure wasn't going to work at Mississippi Lime. And you see how that worked out for me. So I've had a great time working at Mississippi Lime, lots of challenges and progression in my career, and it's been a really rewarding experience, as I'm sure it was for many of you. Before I get started tonight, I have several folks from my team that are dispersed throughout the audience. They're here for moral support, and I expect there will be questions or stories that may come up as we go through some of this material, and wanted to have some of our folks here present that could answer some of that. So first of all, we have Charlie Gay. He is in our mine department. Stand up so they can see you. He's also head of our mine rescue team. So he's been with Mississippi Lime for how many years, Charlie?
I've been out there for a little over 43 years.
Yes. Wow. So, in the front row, we have Mr. Ted Holland. He is part of our ERP project team currently and our materials management group. How many years have you been at the company? 34. Next, we have Mr. Tom French. He is our mine operations manager, and he has been with the company for 38 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And then standing against the wall is Mr. Drew Blair. He is our senior mining engineer, and you've been with the company for 4 years. So kind of a mixture of folks from different areas in the plant with us tonight, as many retirees as well. So with that, we're going to jump into the slide deck. As Stephanie mentioned, in the mining room next door, there is a slide deck that runs. We've taken that and augmented it with some additional photos and content to share with you, as well as some historical slides that were in our archive as well that we'll share some stories with toward the end. So, as Stephanie said, we are the city beneath the city, if you will. We have even more than 6,000 acres at this point underneath the surface. We have an operation that is 24/7 within the plant. The mine may not be 24/7, but within the kilns and structure, there is always someone on site every day of the week, every hour of the week. And so when you go back to the history, which this museum has much history within its walls, this is the Paleozoic era, as when millions of years ago there were small shallow seas throughout this area. And tiny marine life collected in, and over the course of time, those shells, skeletons, organisms formed beds on the floor of the ocean, which were many, many hundreds of feet thick. And I'm no history professor or geologist, but through the ages, the pressure of that overlaying sediment compacted that limestone into the deposits that we have in this region. And it's not only within Mississippi Lime, it's within Tower Rock, Folsom, Lawast, Fisher's Quarry down south in St. Mary. The deposit runs a long set of miles. So how was lime ever found? Some say that it was found by accident, in fact. In the prehistoric era, there would be stones put around fires, and when that fire would be lit and heat those rocks, it essentially cooked off the CO2 from the calcium carbonate and made what is called calcium oxide or lime. I'm going to give Ted a second to give you kind of a lime description in general.
Sure. Looking out there, and we're here to give the history, but man, there's a lot of people here that could just tell stories instead of history. So when we talk about lime, depending on who you are, how you use it, or what farm, lime has a lot of meanings. We're going to talk about limestone, but if you hear somebody liming the fields, that's limestone, agricultural lime. When Elizabeth talked about quicklime, burnt lime, you send it through the kiln or to a heat source and hold it at a temperature, pushes off the carbon dioxide. It's in a piece of rock, 44% of that is carbon dioxide. That's what comes out to make the quicklime. If we mix that with water, we end up with hydrated lime or slaked lime. Or if you make a slurry out of that, you end up with whitewash too. And also, if you see it on the shelf in Country Mart, pickling lime, that's hydrated lime. If you want to put the CO2 back into it, we end up with precipitated calcium carbonate, or chalk, as it's known around here. You can also think of it as Tums, because that's what Tums is, pretty much. Don't go eat a piece of rock, just put it in your belly. Tums. You can also make lime. You don't have to have limestone. There was an operation in Belle Chasse, Louisiana that made lime for decades out of oyster shells. Pretty pure stuff, but they had oyster beds from centuries of oyster cultures. They can make lime out of that. Another source, ancient source, and Elizabeth's going to talk about an old source. Lime is mentioned in the Bible about 5 or 6 times as plaster. God told Moses and Aaron, plaster your houses with lime. There's a quote in the book of Amos about telling, rewarding Moab for burning the king of Edom and turning his bones into lime. I had to research that a little bit. Creepy. Good thing it's Halloween. But in ancient practice, when you would conquer your enemy and burn his body, you would turn their bones into plaster. You would plaster your house with your enemies. It was a sign of your victory. Even your Old Testament didn't know that. So just want to make you aware, when you hear lime, you may think of lime as the stone itself. There's actually different chemical versions of the lime.
Very good.
So the oldest known lime kiln dates back to 2450 BC in Mesopotamia. So lime kilns have been around for just a moment. So the forces of nature that created the unusual limestone deposit in St. Genevieve area is called the Salem Formation. If you get a chance after we speak or we finish up tonight, there are several maps on the wall when you go out toward the mining room that depict the different deposits of limestone or the different layers of limestone. The ones we're going after from a quick lime production is very high in calcium carbonate. It's in the 98.5% calcium carbonate, which creates purity in our product. And so that's very important for the efficiency in our manufacturing and meeting our customer demands. The lime industry here in St. Genevieve is nearly as old as the town itself. And we have several abandoned kilns or kilns from eras gone by throughout our facility and in different places throughout the county. So this is one here. There's another picture coming up shortly of one that's right in the middle of our facility as well, this one here. So if anyone's familiar with the transloader in the middle of the plant, that's where that one's located. And I think we probably need to give the one at the plant a haircut because it's not looking quite that clean at the moment. So early lime makers made shaft kilns, just based on the technology and the things they had available to them. Shaft meaning the upright vertical. They would put layers of stone and wood inside of those kilns, let it cook, slowly pull portions of the lime out from the bottom of the kilns, and that's the way they produced their lime. In the late 20s, coal was introduced as a source replacement for the wood, and we still burn solid fuel coal in several of our kilns throughout the plant today. So our founder, this pencil sketch actually hangs in the main hallway at our facility. I walk by it every morning when I come into the office. This is Harry B. Matthews. He formed Mississippi Lime in 1907 in Alton, Illinois, whenever he purchased Mississippi Sand Company. And 6 months after that, he encountered the financial pinch of 1907. They called it the Panic of 1907. But he kept pressing on. He was quite the entrepreneur. In 1912, he expanded his business and invested in another lime, or a lime plant beyond his sand business in Alton as well. And so he increased his lime production in the lime industry to be competitive. After World War I, he joined forces with his partner, Joseph Aldous, and they purchased what would become Bluff City Lime and Stone in Hannibal, Missouri, to expand his business. So in the 1920s, somehow they became interested in the deposits that were here locally in the Salem deposit of St. Genevieve. They heard rumors on the street that it was considered as pure as ivory soap, which is equated to that 98.5 or 98+% calcium carbonate that we have in our limestone here in St. Genevieve. And they moved Bluff City Minerals, Lime and Stone to St. Genevieve, where they built several vertical kilns and a hydrator. I know Robert has some photos out in the main lobby as well, and some of these very old lime kilns from the early 1900, 1910 period. If you get a chance afterwards, step out there and take a peek at those as well. So these still were shaft kilns. This plant is what's called the St. Genevieve plant, or St. Genevieve Lime and Quarry Company, which is was located in the central part of our plant today. So in 1930, Mr. Matthews decided he didn't want to be a partner anymore. He wanted to be a sole entrepreneur, and he bought out his partner and proceeded to continue to expand the plant here in St. Genevieve. In the mid to late 30s is when he moved on to the rotary technology, where the kilns are a horizontal, or like a stone tumbler type piece of equipment versus a shaft kiln. And this, still to this day, the vertical kilns must take a larger size stone than the rotary kilns. And so as he was trying to manage his deposit and make sure that he could get the most out of the stone he was blasting and bringing to the surface, he needed a way to be able to utilize the deposit and put smaller stone in those rotary kilns. And so that helped him utilize his stone better. 1936 was also a big year. That's when we officially became Mississippi Lime Company, as we are to this day in 2023. So, living in a farm community, as this industrial monster started to grow, or facility started to expand, there were questions of whether it was healthy or not. The farmers in particular questioned whether the dust and the coal burning facilities were causing any sort of health conditions for their families or their livestock. So in order to put that concern to rest, Mr. Matthews started Mississippi Lime Farms. He had many cattle around, and we actually operated an active farm until the mid-80s, right? Or was it 90s?
2000-ish.
Was it? Fact check me, friends. Yeah. So Vernon Bader Jr. was our last farm person. And so this put it to rest. We had prize-winning cattle, and it helped people gain a comfort level with the industry growing in the middle of the town. So unfortunately, Mr. Matthews passed away in the winter, actually, of 1969. His daughter, Margaret, or Mrs. Jinks, as many people in St. Genevieve know her as, had begun to shadow her father in the 1960s and was ready to take over the business. She too wanted to be a sole entrepreneur and not a partner, and proceeded to buy her brothers out in the 1980s. So Today, we are still owned by the Jinks family. We officially, on paper, are owned by the HBM Trust, which is owned by the HBM family, or Harry Matthews descendants, which are Mrs. Jinks' family today, privately held by the same lineage of the family that began our company in 1907. We've continued to expand across North America, mainly the Midwest and Southeast regions. We have mini kilns here in St. Genevieve, as well as hydrators and a PCC facility and the underground mine. We have a kiln and hydrator in Verona, Kentucky, which is just south of Cincinnati. A kiln and hydrator in Calera, Alabama, which is near, thank you, Birmingham, Alabama. I wanted to say Mobile, and I knew that was right. And then we do have a milling facility in Mobile, a hydrator in Chester, and several other sprinklings. In 2022, we made some additional expansions in purchasing Valley Minerals in Von Terre, which is now one of our kilns for dolomitic lime. And we also purchased a company, which is the second largest lime producer in the United Kingdom, Singleton Birch Limited. And they have 4 vertical kilns as well in the UK. So we are officially an international organization effective 2022. So we're going to talk more in detail about the mine, and Drew and Tom, feel free to chime in on any of the details as we go through this. Our mine isn't like a coal mine or a low ceiling mine that you would think of. You can drive a 75-ton haul truck or a 990 cat loader from the entrance all the way to our active headings today. So the lowest point we'll get is 20-something feet up to 90+ feet when we're fully mined out in some of the areas. And this note's 165 feet below surface. Obviously, Mother Nature is not perfect. She didn't lay everything exactly symmetrical in all areas of the mine, so we vary anywhere from that near 165 up to approaching 250 to 300 feet below the surface, depending on where we are and what the proximity is to the river, quite honestly. So here are some more modern photos of what it looks like today. This is our large passenger van that we take folks in and out of the facility in for training or visits to give you kind of the size and scale. This is right inside the mine as you drive in. All of our folks from the Mine Safety and Health Administration requirements must have a brass tag on their person when they enter the mine. So all of our miners go through what we call the block building, secure their brass tag and go underground each morning or evening or night, depending on what shift they're coming in on. So to talk through the process of what we do, we have diesel-powered equipment underground, and the initiation of the process starts with diesel-powered drills. On the left-hand side, you can see one of our older drills. What era do you think that one's from, Charlie?
50s,
Yeah.
60s.
Up to our current and present day this is a double boom drill actually, that's drilling there in our headings. And on the far right, you see our powdermen who are loading the shot that is the heading that has already been drilled. So our mining pass initially starts with what we call a heading pass. So if you think of the deposit and this being the downward view, we drill into this first pass on a horizontal basis, and we blast that first pass. When we come back, we drill vertically into the bench, and we take the bottom pass. And that's the way we continue to move out and expand into our mine. Once it is loaded and shot, then we have a truck and loader fleet that will load it and haul it to our crusher. Obviously, every precaution is taken to protect our miners, to keep them safe so they can go home to their families the way they join us each shift. And this is a picture of one of our older scalers from decades ago, where folks are going up and removing loose pieces of rock that have been dislodged during the blasting process. This is some of our much newer equipment that we utilize today. You'll see this is an excavator on tracks that has a cutter head with a rotating drum that we remove rock from. We still do some hand scaling where folks are put in man baskets and go up on the pillars. And then we also use these mechanical scalers that have hammers on them as well. So if at all possible, we try to use the mobile equipment and minimize hand scaling. So the next task is to load our trucks and move the stone toward the crusher. We run a fleet of 75-ton haul trucks, as I mentioned. We have 11 of them underground at any given time, and a fleet of 5 loaders that we run. We do have a significant quality program where we're testing our stone to make sure that it meets the quality of our customers and for any of the different types of kilns that we are running on the surface. Here's some historical, an old Euclid truck that some of you may remember from your days underground. I see some heads shaking yes. And this is the old crusher that is being fed here, which was up close to the portal. So we continuously have trucks coming to the crusher and dumping into the system to be able to size and sort stone. This is some of our current fleet. This is one of our large 75-ton haul trucks and a heading. This is what a heading looks like where you have the first pass. Then one of our large cat loaders. The trucks then travel to the dump block, we call it, and they back up to this crusher, lift the bed, and dump the rock into the primary crusher. From this point forward, the stone is conveyed all the way to the kilns from underground. So this is a picture of some of our crushing facilities underground. It looks like much a similar crushing operation you'd see on the surface at a tower rock or any surface quarry operation. But we have quite the system of belts, crushers, screens, etc. underground. And this is a smaller picture, but this is the old crusher at the very front of the entrance to the mine. So Tom runs a pretty self-sufficient team underground. I think the mine team, no matter what era of Mississippi Lime, the team has been pretty self-sufficient, making sure that they're watching out for each other, that they have all the supplies and things to run each day. We have many mechanic slabs underground, some closer to the surface, some further out into our active mining areas that are staffed to work on the equipment where it needs to be worked on. So as I mentioned, this area, this deposit, gives us the opportunity to produce some of the purest lime available in North America. And from the time the stone is blasted in the mine until it's finished high calcium lime, these products are shipped, as I mentioned, by a belt system, feeders, conveyors, etc., all the way to the Mississippi rotary kilns. And these are the old ones. They still have some of the tall stacks in that picture. Those don't exist anymore. But the stone is conveyed all the way from the mine to the kilns in the very front of the plant. So when the stone leaves the mine, we have 2 large stone sheds like the one on the top. That is the Peerless Stone Shed that is still in operation to this day. These are some of the rock trains back at the vertical. Those are not in operation anymore. We have the 2 rotary plants, the ones you see from the road, which are the wet scrubber kilns with the white plumes. And then we have the preheater kilns back at Peerless in the west end of our facility. Some associate them with the size or length of a football field, several hundred feet in length. So these here on the left are our Peerless kilns, preheater towers. The picture on the right bottom are our vertical kilns as well as the vertical hydrators. The old vertical shaft kilns that had the rock trains that some of you may remember were just beyond this building to the west. They are dismantled or disassembled at this point in time. So, how do the kilns operate in general? The large rotary kilns, we feed with solid fuel or natural gas, depending on what we're burning at that point in time. It is turned at a slow rate of speed to allow the stone to absorb heat and cook off the CO2. And then it goes into what we call a cooler, but that doesn't really make it cool. It just makes it not hot enough to burn the belts and go to the bins and dust the rail cars or trucks. We do screen and size all of our lime on the back end of the process, depending on what the customer needs are. We ship in rail cars. This is one actually offloading at our barge terminal up by the city park. Some of it is packaged in 50-pound bags, as you see in the top right-hand corner. This is an old picture here. This gentleman has no fall protection on. At least I don't see any. Maybe he has a rope tied to his breeches. But what did you say? No hard hat. I'm sure there's no safety glasses. And maybe he's got steel toes on, maybe not. But yeah, standing on top of a truck loading, I think it's a truck there. So, this is one of the older pictures of the vertical kilns. And so, fresh limestone was fed into the top. They put heat into them, and at that point in time, they were using coal in those kilns too, in the early 1900s. And again, much like those stone kilns I showed you in the very beginning, they would let the stone come down through, draw it out in in intervals on the bottom to then be able to cook that CO2 off. Those kilns are obviously no longer in existence except for the one stone kiln that we keep for historical purposes. Ted talked a bit about our hydrate, where we're adding water back to our quicklime, so I won't go into that in too much detail. We do have a full-time lab in our facility. You think of labs mainly in hospitals and places like that, but we have a full lab where we're testing all of our products, whether that's stone, lime, hydrate, PCC, etc., for making sure we're meeting our customer standards. We've got some photos of the old barge loadout and when we still owned the boat up at the Little Rock or Tom Muir Barge Terminal, whatever you may call it. Today we actually have all of that service contracted out, but we still load barges in that very same location to this day. The majority of our product that goes on the river feeds some of our other facilities that I explained earlier, whether that's in Mississippi, West Virginia, Chester, South Carolina via rail, and some other locations as well. And again, barge, rail, and truck can all go out of our facility. So we are the largest single lime producing site in North America. We are not the largest lime producer, but this is the largest single site in North America, here in St. Genevieve, America. One other thing that sets us apart is we do have food grade lime that is able to be produced in our facility as well, which can go into many of the products that you enjoy in your everyday life. So steel is one of the largest and oldest markets that we serve. You add lime into the kettle whenever you are producing molten steel. It reacts in the kettle and causes the impurities to come to the top where it can be skimmed off, and then they have a pure batch to make their steel products with. We also go into the flue gas treatment or pollution abatement market, construction, mainly for soil stabilization. We also go into many food products, white paper coatings, and things like that. The list goes on and on. The short story is lime is inside or part of the process of making most of the products we encounter in our everyday life. So these are some of the older photos we have. I always chuckle at this photo when I see it of 1,000 days worked without a disabling injury. You know, today we think about, I pulled my shoulder, or I got some lime and I have a lime burn, or I got some lime in my eye. I mean, any of you that have worked at the plant know what a lime burn feels like, I'm sure. And so I always chuckle when I see this, a disabling injury. It's quite a difference in the culture and safety that we live in today. Mrs. Jinks is probably, folks today, not many folks had a lot of time to work with Mr. Matthews, but many people, especially retirees here in the room today, met or worked right alongside Mrs. Jinks at some point in their career. She is the pillar, the matriarch, I would say, of Mississippi Lime, and anyone that you say Mrs. Jinks to, even some of the new hires, people know who Mrs. Jinks was. I'm happy to say that she is still alive and well. She turned 102 last week, and so we're very proud to still be owned by the Matthews family. So one of the things that we take significant pride in at Mississippi Lime is our continuous philanthropic involvement in the community, both here and surrounding communities. Quite honestly, over half of our workforce comes from outside of St. Genevieve into the plant every day. I'm quite amazed, and when I see the new hire classes, many times we have no one from the local community. So we are part of the surrounding communities as well as St. Genevieve proper. These are several of some of the older things that we've done in the past. Everybody knows the sandbagging efforts that happened in St. Genevieve in 1993 and 95. Some of the ongoing things that we participate in today is partnership with the World Bird Sanctuary. We have many nest boxes, and they do an annual bird study on our property, validating that the conservation and the ecosystems are in good shape around our manufacturing operations. So I'm going to turn it over to Ted, and he has a set of older photos, historical items, and he's going to share some stories with all of you.
So, I didn't mention, like many of you veterans, I'm a multi-generational employee of Mississippi Lime, between my dad and my maternal grandfather, and listened to a lot of stories from uncles and old-timers like Jimbo back there, too. This picture is from 1927 from the St. Genevieve Lime Company that Elizabeth mentioned. So if you think of where Mississippi Lime is in that Creek Valley, there were 4 different lime plants in there, plus there was one over by Limekill Park, plus there was another calcining operation down by the river. Out where Mississippi Lime is, there was Western Lime, Peerless White Lime, which is now our Peerless Rotary plant, the St. Genevieve Lime, and Bussin Lime. In town, there was also Petroquin Lime, and Mary, what's the one I'm forgetting?
I'm retired, remember my burning.
So this is 1927 from, like I said, St. Genevieve Lime Company. What's interesting about this is not just a bunch of workers standing around, but this is 105 people that I counted in this picture for what is probably a 1-kill operation. To me, that tells you how manual the processes were, in the 20s, 30s, 40s. The other thing that's interesting about this is a multiracial workforce in St. Genevieve County in the 1920s. I thought that was pretty interesting. The other thing is, I would bet less than 10% of these people own a car. It's not like you drove out to work. I live less than a mile from the plant. These guys probably live within a quarter mile, a few hundred yards. And we have a schoolhouse that's been restored within the plant. If there's a school there, there was a community there at one time. These people, made a community around that area right there. None of those houses are around anymore. You can see up on the hill here, there's what I think is a barn. It just speaks a lot. Also, you got to remember, this wasn't 40-hour work weeks back then. It was a different type of structure. My grandpa was a farmer, And what I call between planting and picking, he was on the farm. But after the picking part, there were a lot of guys that came into the lime works, and that's where they worked throughout the winter. This is, I think this is also from the St. John. No, I think this is from Peerless White Lime. And it's a cooperage, or a barreling operation. And what's interesting is you think about the time. This is probably early 20s, maybe a little before. You know, plastics hadn't been invented yet. Barrels were probably the only airtight type of container available at that time for shipping lime. When you send lime through a kiln, you want to keep the air from it so it doesn't revert back. So you can see here's tops and bottoms. There's some staves here, some barrels assembled there. Just kind of interesting how you ship this material. And we were shipping nationwide at that time already, too. This is another picture from the line. The shovels, the scoops, they were electric. Jimbo, does this predate you? A little bit? Okay. The trucks, if you look at the trucks, open cab trucks, open stacks, and little bitty. Right? Nothing like a 70-ton haul truck. And you could probably put 10 of these in the bed of one of our trucks today. This is another area, Drew, where is this?
Looks like it's just inside the Orwell and Peerless side.
Yeah, so the Peerless Mine area.
I think you can, it's active, so, no, go up there. Yeah.
So there's rails laid here, little locomotives, little diesel cars, or carts. It's a little hard to tell in this picture. But those carts are loaded by hand to get the stone to stack that high in order to get a heavy load coming out the gate. So if you think, we went from loading by hand, this was the improvement. This is a picture of the Peerless plant. And for those of your ex-employees, this is the blue pool. Before it was the blue pool. So, in other words, this was an open quarry. You can see they started to make entrance over here. And this is where I'll tell the story of Mississippi Lime. The way I read the account was the plant set off a charge one day and hit some water. And somebody had the idea that, well, to stop the water, put some more dynamite in the hole and try and blast the hole shut. And so the opposite happened, and they made the hole bigger, and now we got the blue pool. Brought this up, you know, every family has a dark spot in their history. And I bring this up only because this is the 50th anniversary of the strike of '73 at Mississippi Lime. Some of you guys in the back, you probably remember this. Yeah, I know you worked in the plant during that time. Yeah. Willie, you were out there too, right? 1973, the plant had a strike, they had a flood, and they had a fire in the main office building all in that one year. This went on for 82 days, best I remember. There was a previous strike, and previous contract was in 1970. That was a short strike, like a week, maybe a couple weeks.
Short.
Yeah, and then 73 came around, and there was this long one. And this one, I'd say it wasn't pretty as an understatement. You know, there's tales of attacks in roads, and I get pictures of supervisors' houses. They got shot with shotguns, things like that. we could have a whole evening on this, and probably wouldn't be the best thing. The other part of this is, I lived through this. I said I was a multi-generational employee. There was a time when the employees had to apply for commodity food stamp aids to the USDA. I remember commodity peanut butter cows during that time. I don't want to end on a sour note, but that's probably what I got. So, questions for Elizabeth, Tom, Drew, or the old guys, the older guys?
I got a question.
Yeah.
Started off here, but how far is it from the entrance of the mine to the farthest reach? You know, how far would you have to drive or whatever?
2.5 or a mile, something like that.
3 miles. Okay.
And the deepest point from the surface?
260-ish, something like that.
Yes, I can.
Talk loud.
260 feet or so.
260 feet below the surface.
Yeah.
And it's about 3.5 miles from the portal to the furthest active face.
Thank you.
Who's your largest customer?
Out of this plant, it's probably SMI.
SMI?
Specialty minerals.
How close to the river do you get with your mine?
We're still a good ways away. Yeah. Yeah. The rock kind of drops off where the bluffs do, so you won't ever really get out to the river.
Yeah. So think of the big drop off along 61. You know, the bluffs there along 61 when you're heading south towards St. Mary. The deposit thins out and drops there just by the natural earth structure.
The distance he was talking about, it takes about 25 minutes to evacuate everybody during a fire drill or tornado drill. Not tornado drills on surface, actually, but the fire drills underneath. We have to evacuate everybody out, and that's bringing all the mobile equipment that they're in at the time out to the mine, and it is freaking awesome to see this equipment roll. One of my best favorite days of the year.
When it's a drill, it's your favorite.
I have been on the other side of the coin. The first week that I went into the mine, we had a fire truck, or a truck fire on the turbo, and that's where I got introduced to the mine rescue team, and what a valuable asset we have in the mine rescue team. So, yeah.
You mentioned tours. Are you still giving tours, or can you sign up for a tour? I would love to go down and see the mine.
So we do not have tours for the public. We actually don't even have tours for families right now. That all ceased whenever the lovely virus that we went through a couple years ago occurred. And so we currently do not offer tours to the public. Spill my laptop on the floor. Thank you.
So right now you're not even thinking about having
No,
tours?
we're not doing tours for the public, no,
Oh,
sir.
I think that'd be great.
Yes, Greg?
I remember old stories about a bomb shelter down there for the community or something. Was there such a thing, and is it still there?
So it's not still there. You gotta remember when it was put there was during, Cold War. There's nothing left there, I don't even know if we have a civil defense sign resting on the wall anymore.
Is it in the, that one?
Keep going. Keep going. So it's when you talk about the land.
Oh, that one's down here.
Yeah.
So that was.
That's the old Mississippi.
Chamber, I think.
Yeah.
So that structure is still there, but I don't think that there's anything in there related to a bomb shelter.
No, we hate it all.
See, that's part of the story instead of the history that we really want to hear.
Yeah, this is a story we could tell. It's a whole pile of stories I got back here.
Yes, sir?
On pickling lime, what is it really, and can we go to the hardware store and buy it?
You can go to Country Mart and buy a 5-pound sack of pickling lime, and it's calcium hydroxide or hydrated lime.
But it's expensive. So what's the cheap version at the hardware store?
So the cheap version at the hardware store is going to be limestone or pulverized lime, it's not gonna react. It's not gonna cause the pickling reaction.
It won't do the same.
Unless you want to go buy the better version because it's the food grade material.
When does it become food grade, or what's the
It
difference?
has to go through the kill and get the CO2, well, first, let me see. You have to start with a pure stone and send it through the kiln. React it with pure water, you know, city water, not just creek water or something like that. To get the food grade calcium hydroxide.
You've also got a lot more restrictions around how you handle it. So like the guys there don't have shirt pockets, so they can't let a pin fall out of their shirt. You know what I mean? There's a lot more, when you start talking FDA, there's a lot more restrictions on how you handle the product. Make sure it's
I'm just
safe.
kind of cynical. I just figured you just moved the chute over.
It's a lot more than
At one time.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I noticed a lot of times they'll pull a truck over the side and double load it on the road. Is that good stuff?
Say again.
Where they get back here, I guess.
So that's what that guy's doing, is he's emptying out his truck before he gets back here. And if you notice, if you're there an hour after he does it, it's still in Pebble Farm. And if you come back the next day, it's kind of, I don't know, mush, yeah. If it gets rained on, it's just a pile of mush. That's going through that hydroxide phase.
Unfortunately, truck drivers do that at O Road on a regular basis.
Well, that's it. I remember when I was fortunate enough to have a tour years ago. I remember you see the big trucks that they have underground, and it doesn't really do it justice. I mean, these are giant trucks, so you can imagine they can't really haul a new truck or equipment on 55. It's too big. You actually have to assemble a lot of that equipment underground for use in the lime company, don't you?
So several of our pieces of equipment, our haul trucks will, sometimes they'll come in with the bed on them, sometimes the bed will be off, the tires will be removed. So there is an assembly process whenever they are brought on site. The large loaders are the biggest assembly process. The buckets ship separate, the cabs, etc.
Life expectancy of the plant, century?
So Mr. Matthews was very wise in his endeavors, and we have mineral reserves that will outlast all of us in this.
How do they get ventilation?
So we have vent fans, shafts that pull fresh air in, and then it sweeps through the mine and out the portal. So we're pulling air in.
So portals, is that out in the farms that you see around?
Yes, sir. Yes.
How many miles of 10 tunnel do we have in here?
How many square miles do you think is mined out at this point?
Acres? 2,200? Yeah, it's a couple thousand acres. It'd be tough to tell you roads, because the way we set our pillars.
Couple thousand acres are mined out.
Anything in between the pillar, you would call a road, so if I try to give you mileage, you'd be a big number.
So we have 58 conveyors underground that conveys all the stone from the primary crusher out to the processing part.
So what happens to the mined out parts? Do you just evacuate them, or do you store them?
So in some areas, we'll store inventory, depending on its proximity to the crushing facility. Some areas, we have fines or the small stuff that we can't burn in the kilns. In some areas, we are just inactive.
Oh,
Yes.
Do you all have a plan if they ever do anything to limit fossil fuels?
Yes, sir, we do. We have a strategic plan that we work on. Actually, I had a conference call this morning on a piece of that. So we're looking at different energy options in the future.
Good.
I mean, Perry's worked at the plant for what, 4 decades? 5?
45 years.
45 years. He knows everything. Some of our kilns burn natural gas as well. It's not all coal fired.
Correct.
And that's another reason we end up with food grade too.
Yes.
I had a summer job working at the vertical plant on the rock train.
Yes.
When did you get out of the rock train business?
It was before I joined.
So I'm curious, How many guys have done rock training? It's better than anything at Six Flags. let me tell you.
I did it over Christmas break when I was in school, and it was freezing rain on midnight shift, and I'm afraid of heights, and it made me go back to engineering school.
It sent a lot of people back to school.
So when do you think the train stopped?
I don't know, Tony, when did the rock train come down? Was it after the late 60s? No, it was later. It was still running.
there in 70s, 72, 73.
No, it was 90s. It was Dusty Obermeyer.
Yeah, I would say,
So it was the latter 90s.
yeah, yeah.
Willie's probably been up there, a few thousand times.
Everybody knows what a rock train is. What?
What do you call that off stone that you have to pick off the table? Come on.
I don't know if we have a good picture of it in here.
No, we don't. So the rock train was a little locomotive, and it had carts like that in that picture I showed you. And it got pulled up on top of the kiln, and then the carts would dump into the kiln. And then it get lowered back down, and it ran halfway up the plant. This is when it was originally stored. You got to fill it up, and then go back to the plant, got pulled up by a cable.
Yes, Bob?
On that other slide presentation in the mining room, I think there's a slide of the old vertical picking floor that's got some boxes of good lime and probably some bull nuts in there too.
What was the job associated with the mine train? I mean, was it dangerous, or was it high, or I can't kind of just get a picture of what you guys are talking about.
It was high, I don't know.
Did somebody have to be up there on it and
80 feet high.
work it and stuff?
It was up on the tracks, and the little locomotive pulled 2 cars, and they would load both cars and take them down. And there were certain kills that you would feed at certain times, had draw time every hour. And the little locomotive was International H motor, because I've overhauled them, and that is what took the train down to fill the kills, and they knew exactly what kill to feed at what time, and it would haul 2 cars. Okay?
And then you guys would manually have to put it in?
No,
Or dump
no,
or
it
be
come
there?
in the conveyor and you shut it off when it's full, and then when you went down, you had to pull the lever on the little cart that dumped it in.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And it probably dumped maybe a ton and a half at a time.
But you had to get out of the train and open the door.
Oh, yeah,
The top of the kiln, which was
Yeah, it was-
2,700 degrees.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it was cold up there.
And icy.
It was a one-man process.
Yeah.
One man out there,
Yeah,
the loco and the dump.
Yeah, no, I get it, yeah.
Back then, they would say, Mueller, not selling his spin cold.
Call the jail house every hour, so they know we're okay.
Any other questions for
Somebody
our
had a good
guests?
idea. Even back
That
then.
was the safety aspect.
I think I see the making of another, like, employee forum storytelling. I think it'd be great fun.
One quick story. Tom, tell what's painted on the wall in the mine story for this.
So, I went down to the mines in 2020, and I was down there probably about a month. I was getting a tour, and Charlie come up to me and said, I got something to show you. The museum's wanting some stuff, and there's a rail car over there, and jack legs. And, okay, so get you some boots. So I get my boots. He takes me over, and we're going down one of the rock trains in the mine that he showed you earlier, one of those photographs with the little cart. Actually, we have one of the carts outside here at the museum that we pulled out of there along with the jacklins that are in here. But the walls inside the mine area there, I had writing. So a lot of it I can talk about, some of it I can't. But this wall, when I walked past this wall with my mine light, and I glanced at it, I see 1944. As I stopped and read it, it said, "The war is over, the war is over. Oh, happy days, 1944. And I mean, it just makes the hair on the back of your neck stick out. You know, what the people worked there during that time, how they had to work. There's still barrels over there where they used to burn wood for heat. It was just
So,
pretty
if you think about what Tom said, 1944, I know where he was. If you come back a little ways, think about progression over time. There's another spot on the wall just before that that says Adolf Hitler is a no good son of a.
Those are ones I couldn't talk about.
Do you have any pictures when you had mules down there?
No.
I don't have none of them, but I got a bunch from my father of the carts and stuff that were actually over there.
How many mules did they have? Does anybody ever remember that?
Tom and Jack.
I think if they have 44 and Jimbo.
Any other questions? As I mentioned earlier, the museum is solely supported by admissions and grants and the gracious donations and sponsorships, people like Mississippi Lime organizations, and also area businesses. Tonight's presentation of Mississippi Lime is brought to you by Vern Bowman Contracting. Let's give him a hand. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thing I forgot to mention this little bit of history. Where Goose's State, what we call Goose's Station. Anybody remember what was there before?
Can't hear you, Ted.
What was where Goose's is today?
Yeah, 6 Hours Tavern.
Yeah, it was Doc Sexar's place. Piece of overly dog, 6 inches long, was 5 cents.
Probably had to be about 7.
Yeah, but we went over there at 50s.
Every work group had their own little bar they went to, and that was the Lime Kills hangout. And its nickname was the Bank of the Lime Kills. Because all week long, guys would go in there and buy a beer and run up a tab. Fridays, they went in there and cashed their paycheck. The guy took out what they owed, and they got the rest.
Where Goose's Station was on the corner here.
Where are you currently blasting?
Everywhere.
Her backyard.
Around my house.
Around your area?
We're out Bourbon, Coreytown, and back toward the plant.
So it depends on, the mine is like a city, like I said earlier, so it's like blocks. We have 100 blocks, 200 blocks, 300 blocks. And depending on the quality of the lime and how we want the trucks to travel into the crusher so there's not a bottleneck. So the supervisors strategically place a loader in so many trucks here and a loader in so many trucks here. And then that's how they keep the flow of the movement into the crusher. So you may be blasting in the 100 block, you may be blasting in the 300 block, just depends on what we're doing.
Those are the neighborhoods of the mine.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, ma'am?
Is your line going to come all the way up to Highway O?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Just checking.
We're going south. We're going south.
Do you have to elevate to follow your line you're after, or is it pretty well?
It's reasonably consistent, but Mother Nature's not perfect, right? So that's why we talk about being that 160 to 260 feet below surface. So it varies in certain spots.
I know it's a big place because I've drawn it 2 or 3 times. A lot of changes as it goes through.
So there's a lot of hills there.
What's your employment status? How many employees? How many management staff?
So at St. Genevieve, we have just under 600 employees total. About 425 are hourly workforce between our production and maintenance groups, and the remaining is salary.
We have approximately 104 in mine.
Depends on the day.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Mississippi Lime Company, I remember doing commercials for you eons ago. You're a good neighbor. They are. We thank them so much for their donations and their sponsorships and support.